Hello and welcome back to the Social Jar podcast. It's another virtual episode this week, but once again, I am joined by Mr. Andreas Georgiou to take, not this week, a wild and wacky dive into the social media industry. It's more a well-suited and booted, very professional gander into its corporate hub, because this week we are looking at LinkedIn, its rise to popularity, and how you can get the most out of it. Wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed, and if you enjoy the Social Jar, head over to our completely free Patreon account for loads more exclusive behind the scenes sneak peeks into everything Social Jar, some exclusive content. And the reason why we're here virtually at the moment is because we're still in the process of building our set. We've posted some sneaky previews as to what that's going to look like. We hoped that today would be the first episode where we're in person in the brand new surroundings, but a few minor hitches, I think it's fair to say, has prevented us. So we're hoping that this is one of the last couple maybe virtual episodes before we're finally in our new surroundings. So very excited times here on the Social Job Podcast. As I said, make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening and check out that free Patreon account for more Social Jar goodness. How are you, mate?
Well, that was a very long intro, Dan, but I'm great.
Yes. There's a lot to cover. Since before the early days, there's way more boxes to check off.
We've got to say this and this and this and this, and we've got to praise these people and these people. Yeah, no, there's a lot to do now with the Social Jar, and yeah, unfortunately, we are not in the new set, and that is because I did not order enough vinyl wrap for the table.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Let's put the blame on me. That's where it deserves to be. It's completely my fault. But we did start the build. We did quite a lot of test shots. It looks phenomenal.
It looks great
from what we have got available. So we are very, very excited to share it with you all. We think it's going to only enhance, for those of you who do watch the video version of the podcast on the Social Jar YouTube channel, we really feel it's going to enhance the experience, much better visual quality, much better audio quality as well. So it's a very, very exciting time ahead. It's like Christmas, isn't it, Dan? You know it's coming. You know 100%. It's coming. It's not quite here yet. We got to wait a few more sleeps until Santa Social Media comes and delivers a brand new set on the Social Jar. So, unfortunately, here we are. Well, not unfortunately. Remote in the studio. It's still a pleasure to be here with you, Dan, on the Social
100%.
Jar podcast. And once again, a big shout out to our followers on our free Patreon account. We would not be here if it wasn't for you guys. Thank you so much for your continued support with the show. Please tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a dog, tell whoever you want. Get people following the Patreon account. It is going to be even better once we get into that set. So get ahead of the game, get following. Thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. And whilst we're on the topic of the Patreon account, that's a very good link because the most loyal listeners, you guys that do follow the Patreon account, will notice there was no episode vote for this topic. You guys, we normally present you with 3 episodes. It's one of the perks of the Patreon account, and you can vote for whatever you want to hear Andreas and I speak about on the next episode. But this week, there was no vote, and that's because the last vote was actually a tie. We put out 3 topics, one of which was the last episode where we talked about exactly what it means to go viral here in 2022, and one of the other topics was what we're going to be discussing today, which is LinkedIn, its rise to prominence and how you can get the most out of it. And if I'm correct in saying, mate, they ended on exactly the same amount of votes.
They did after we finished filming. So before, obviously, when we decided which topic to film, the topic of last week's show was in the lead, and then after we finished filming, I went back to the Patreon account and I saw that they were tied. So I said to you, Dan, look, it's only fair. Next topic,
100%.
we've got to do the LinkedIn topic. That's what everybody wanted to hear. So here we are. Obviously, that's the reason there was no vote this week, but it's still what the fans wanted, and we always give the fans what they want.
100%, mate, 100%. So that's a last-minute equaliser there for LinkedIn, and I can't quite believe that we're on episode 18 of this show now, mate. And if I'm correct in saying, I still don't think we've had maybe a topic here and there, maybe a brief little discussion, but we still not dedicated an entire episode to, as we're going to discuss today, one of social media's most popular and most important, I think it's fair to say, platforms in the here and now in 2022. We're both avid users here on LinkedIn, both of us. We use it for a lot of different reasons. We're both big fans of the platform. So I think it's only right that we sit down and give it its whole episode, because it's a fantastic platform, mate. One that's really come into its own sort of in the last 5 years or so, as we're going to get into. And I'm really looking forward to it, mate.
LinkedIn is a very underappreciated platform, and that is obviously because it's got a very, very specific audience, which the majority of the social media world doesn't fit into. And I think that's probably why it doesn't really get the credit it deserves. But it's a tremendous, tremendous tool. And as we're going to talk about today, Dan, there are lots of reasons why businesses, brands, personal brands should be utilizing the platform to promote themselves, to promote their company, and just to get out there, and that primary focus of networking, professional networking.
Yeah, so I think all of this is made more incredible by the fact that LinkedIn is the oldest of all the major social media platforms. It was founded 9 months before Facebook in 2002, I believe. But it's really in the last decade that it started to go from strength to strength. It was purchased by Microsoft. Purchased by Microsoft.
It was purchased by LinkedIn.
Yeah, that would be incredible, wouldn't it? It was bought in by Microsoft in 2016 for a whopping $26.2 billion. And they sort of picked up on an upwards trajectory that had really been sort of starting about 10 years ago, I want to say. It's been really going from strength to strength in that time. Search interest for LinkedIn has increased more than 60% in that decade-long period that I'm talking about. So Microsoft were the first to pick up on this and bought the platform for $26.2 billion in 2016. And since then, that's when it's really taken off. Just 2 years on from that sale, the platform grew from 467 million users in the third quarter of 2016 to 590 million by the end of 2018. So that's an incredible rise of more than 120 million people hopped onto the platform in the space of just over a year and a quarter. And I think what's most sort of impressive with LinkedIn, mate, is that it's come to dominate a niche. It's known as the professional social networking site. It's completely unchallenged, really, in that regard. It's essential for any professional now in 2022, it feels. And that's not something that you can be said for really many of the platforms, in that if you're in an industry, you have to be on this platform.
Yeah, LinkedIn has really honed its place in the market of where it should be and where its value is. And obviously, it's a professional tool used by professionals, used by people who are looking to network, looking to develop their professional portfolio, to develop their professional networking. And that's where its value really, really lies. It's a great tool to get out there, especially if you're looking to expand in a specific industry, get to know people in that industry, expand your knowledge of that industry as well. There's some really good resource sharing tools on LinkedIn too. And that's where, when we look at it, how you say there, it's older than Facebook. That's aptly right, because it feels like an old person's tool, even though, as I know you're going to go on to explain in a short while, Dan, it's actually, it's very popular with younger demographics as well. But in terms of its place in the market, it's a critical tool. It's very, very important, and it offers something which, in my opinion, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever else you want to classify, definitively cannot and does not offer.
Yeah, 100%. I think that younger demographic is that's the cause for one of on the social jar. I've ended up with egg on my face on many, many occasions, and one that stands out to me is when you were quizzing me on the sort of said demographics of LinkedIn and its users, and I was completely way off. I thought with it being the sort of professionals platform, it would attract an older audience, maybe the 30s to 50s, and that kind of bracket when people are really in the prime of their careers. Apparently not. The key to its success, I think it's arguable to say, has been the platform's ability to attract a surprisingly young user core. Millennials make up 60%, just over 60% of LinkedIn's user base. which is quite remarkable, really, how the
Yeah.
platform has managed to attract sort of college and university graduates and make it a platform for them which can help them step into the professional worlds and sort of enhance their careers in the early stages, has perhaps been one of the reasons why we've seen it take off in recent years. Overall, the platform now has almost 70 million members and over 55 million registered companies. It's really come into one of its own. But yeah, as you said, mate, that's surprisingly young user core. And I think surprising is a fair word to use. Would you agree that that's perhaps been the reason why it's come into its own of late?
Well, according to datareportal.com, 480 million of LinkedIn's users are aged between 25 to 34, which is a 59.1% of its total. And like we've discussed in previous podcasts, Dan, for a lot of people, that's quite a shocking fact, because it's like, oh no, I would expect the older generation to be more prominent on LinkedIn. And if you actually think about it, it does make sense, because LinkedIn is a tool for professionals to network and to develop their careers. And really, if you've already been there and done that, you're already, successful perhaps, or you've already built a real wealth of contacts in the industry. LinkedIn's still a great tool, but it holds less value. It's a great tool, especially for recruiters, to go in and find people who are interested in jobs, who, maybe are looking to join younger companies, to join newer companies, startup companies. It's a really, really great tool, and it's so much easier to target for recruiters, especially compared to if they were to use Reed or to use Indeed. So that's where the value of LinkedIn truly is, in terms of what it can do in the professional space. And as we say, Dan, it's, when you really think about it, if you take your silly social hat off, when you really think about it, it genuinely does make sense that is the core demo of the platform.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that ever since that day where you embarrassed me publicly, mate, it's something which has become more and more evident.
Embarrassed you publicly? Yeah. I don't know if we can go that far. I mean,
I'm taking it. No. So yeah, mate, you'll
do it to
right.
me one day, Dan.
Yeah.
It's like
when
the
we'll
Padawan becomes the master. You know what I mean?
Something like that, mate. Something like that. Yeah, mate. I think it's fair to say that its importance is twofold, and this is something we're going to come on to talk about next. There's two reasons I think why LinkedIn comes into its own, and the first is lead generation, and the second is the employment opportunities that it offers on both sides for both the employer and the employee, which I think we'll talk about first, mate. Its significance in recruitment efforts. When it was first launched in 2002, that was the primary purpose of LinkedIn. It was a job hunting platform. Obviously, since then, it's evolved into this complete other beast. But that's its primary purpose, and that is arguably still what it does best. It's estimated that 3 people are hired on LinkedIn every single minute. That's quite a mind-blowing statistic, especially in today's day and age where sort of finding a job and that process of employment isn't necessarily as easy as it has been in previous years. At any one given time, there are an average of 14 million job openings available on LinkedIn. And what's most, as I said, so those are all the amazing opportunities that it offers for prospective employees. But for the employer, I found this really interesting statistic. I think it was from Hootsuite that said employees sourced through LinkedIn are 40% less likely to leave the company within the first 6 months than those hired on those platforms which you were talking about, that's quite remarkable, is it not, mate? We can speak from both sides of the spectrum here, really, can't you? You are obviously an employer who has given people a lot of opportunities sort of in the last sort of 24 months, and me as the young employee, budding career I can say I've experienced both sides of it. So yeah, it's good to hear these little personal anecdotes, mate.
Oh, I can give that other statistic, Dan, that I love to say in the office, which is 100% of people who have applied for a job with uniform and have messaged me privately on LinkedIn as well, aside to their application, just to introduce themselves.
It's not just like, I like this
no,
one.
they don't just who have messaged me have gone on to work with the company, which is a phenomenal statistic of pure chance. I'm not the kind of person
it's fortune.
I'm not the kind of person that just goes, wow, they messaged me on LinkedIn, so they deserve the job. It's completely pure chance. But one day in the office a few months ago, I tracked back, and it was the case that everyone who had done that had come on to work with us here at Uniform. And I don't know if that will be the case moving forward, because maybe there might be some people watching or listening this that's try and use that to their advantage. But by chance, I found that, really, really interesting, because it just actually goes to show that it gives you access to people that you might not have access to. You can go and search if you want to work in the BBC, if you want to work in production, you go on there, find the right people, do the research, connect with them. And it doesn't always need to be about lead generation, like looking for something. There are a great many opportunities on LinkedIn to just introduce yourself to people and say, hey, my name's so-and-so, I'm working in the same industry, just wanted to connect, would love to chat to you at some point if that's ever possible, but if not, would just love to be a connection with you here on LinkedIn to follow your page. That's the power that it has. It can connect us to people in industries that we have interest of that tools like Facebook can't, because Facebook is a personal social media platform. Most people whose Facebook accounts they have, high ranking execs, they don't want little Jimmy or Jesse from down the road to be their friends on Facebook. That's personal, that's family, that's friends. LinkedIn's different, and that connectivity, that opportunity it presents to people is without a doubt one of the most misunderstood and underutilized aspects of any social media platform.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think that's a lovely segue into sort of the last section of this podcast, where we're going to talk about how you can get the most out of LinkedIn. We've mentioned why it's so important, all of the amazing things it can be used for. But yeah, this last dive is going to be exactly how you can get the best out of it and make the most of those opportunities that you were talking about. And I think the first thing to get the ball rolling with is that we've mentioned so many times on this podcast that it's now an essential thing to have, that you've got to have it. If you're a professional and you want to speak highly of yourself and show off your experience and connect with all these amazing people, you've got to have LinkedIn. And I think what lockdown taught me, and I spent a lot of time in lockdown, this is when I was trying to seek employment. I started at Uniform Media when we were working from home, and all of the lovely lovely initial days where you're trying to learn all these different things working from home. It was in lockdown where I truly appreciated the value of LinkedIn, and I think it's got to go from a transition from something you feel like you have to do. I think sometimes there's a lot of that now, like, oh my God, I have to be on LinkedIn. I have to. From going seeking a job, you have to be on LinkedIn, to something that you want to do, to something that you recognize the value of, to something that you sort of hone your profile and you perfect it, and you treat your feed almost like it's a sort of convention or a networking opportunity. And I think that transition from something you feel like you're obliged to do nowadays to something that you actively want to do and you want to perfect and get it right is probably the difference between the people that just are on LinkedIn and the people who use it best.
Absolutely. Using it to your advantage, like I've just said previously, Dan, is what makes it such a, I guess, unique tool, especially. But it's not just about networking, Dan. It's about information sharing as well. It's about learning. There's so many great resources on LinkedIn, presentations that have been put together by companies or individuals which can help you learn. And yes, LinkedIn has started to charge for a lot of these resources, but in many ways it is actually worth it in some regards. But what it does, Dan, is, when you go on there and you read the story of the CEO of Gymshark, who tells you in crazy amount of detail in his own words, we're not talking about an interview or a web article where, potentially context can be missing or misconstrued. These are the words of the individual, and they are telling it in their own words, their own story. And that's so powerful. That is an incredible thing that isn't really prevalent across all social media. Twitter, you've got a definitive amount of characters. Facebook, you might do it, you might not do it. TikTok, again, it's short form video content. LinkedIn allows individuals to write or present at their own will and give their story, give their ideas and present that. And if you're if you're interested enough and you want to spend a lot of time there, just by scrolling through and researching and searching for these different people that you aspire to be or aspire to connect with, reading through their feed, reading through their resources, the amount of information, like Gary Vee drops so much fantastic information for free on LinkedIn. And I know he does that on all his platforms, but LinkedIn with the longer form content is so great to read. And there's a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of people who are giving their experiences and telling their stories so other people don't make the same mistakes or other people don't get stuck in similar situations. And from a professional point of view, that's amazing. That's amazing to have at your fingertips these cautionary tales, these helpful pieces of information that you don't have to pay a dime for. There's people who pay thousands of pounds, Dan, to go on courses to learn the true meaning of business and all this stuff here. And the resource tool of LinkedIn is, it's different. Obviously, you're not going on an intense course. You're not getting a certificate in most cases, but reading, learning, watching, it's amazing. It really, 100%. Really is. And I would honestly just suggest to anybody who, whatever their interest is or whatever their passion is, find the leaders, the thought provokers of that industry. Find them, follow them on LinkedIn, comment on their posts, really truly absorb what they have to say. And I guarantee right now, you will learn a lot, and that will help you progress your career.
100%, mate. 100%. I think it's a very valuable platform as well for finding the people behind the accounts that you love. So one of my favorite things on LinkedIn is you sort of go on there and you'll find the head of social at a particular brand that you like following. Or in my case, it's been the case with a lot of different sort of football and football clubs, social media accounts and everything like that. You'll sort of go on and you'll find the head of social at Manchester United or at Barcelona or Real Madrid, and they'll be like, oh, so we achieved today, and you'll get some behind the scenes shots and they'll explain how they got there and like whenever they hit certain milestones. It's amazing to meet the faces behind these sort of organizations, and obviously with outside of sport as well, it's exactly the same. And I think even working in social, we sometimes forget that's the case, don't we, mate? That every account that you see, there is just a team just like you and I working behind it. And so LinkedIn sort of, as I said, even for us in the industry, it's easy to forget that you sort of meet these people and you go, oh yeah, well, of course you exist. There is, and sort of in being introduced to these professionals that are the sort of faces behind the brands you love most is incredible.
The head of Man United example is fantastic, Dan, because I remember reading a post from him explaining when he came in what they changed in terms of their social strategy and what they did to provide assets to all of the players and to help them with their social and how they really invested in that. And that's impeccable knowledge. That's amazing to hear that that's what Manchester United are doing. And if I'm another club in that world, I'm thinking, what could we get out of that? Why don't we try that? There's so many lessons to be learned just by listening to these thought leaders and seeing what they report. People that work for Soccer Aid or Arsenal, or as you say, Manchester United. And then, on the other side of the coin, you've got Gymshark and Lad Bible and Social Chain. Wherever it is, they are giving out free nuggets every single day, and all you have to do is watch and listen, and you will learn.
100%. I think the last thing I wanted to talk about, mate, is you sort of touched on it earlier. LinkedIn will tell you that the best way to get the most out of the platform is to jump on one of their premium features. And now there's several tiers of premium features available to LinkedIn users. LinkedIn claims that candidates with premium get hired an average of twice as fast. So it all sounds very attractive, especially if you're a prospective employee. But the only catch is, mate, is they're not exactly cheap at all. So the first tier, the lowest tier, is called Essentials. It's your Asda's Basic. It's your Aldi of the LinkedIn premium tiers.
Do not disrespect Aldi.
Hey, we
tried to that on this call.
We tried to the other day on a TikTok, didn't we? And they didn't nibble. If you check out the Uniform TikTok account.
But Nespresso did. Nespresso did bite, and I really that's a topic for another day about engaging these big accounts, engaging with people. Community management, we often refer to it as, Dan. But yeah, a really, really good tool. But again, that's for a different time.
We digress, mate. We digress. This first tier, Essentials, gives you a range of sort of surface level benefits. It includes the ability to see who's viewed your profile and advanced insights into relevant companies, all this sort of stuff. It's nothing amazing. It can be quite useful, as I said, if you're looking to find a job or find a good employer. So you imagine that this would be aimed at people that are unemployed, that are seeking a job in the world of work. But this feature is a staggering $29.99 a month. It's ludicrous, and this goes right up. I won't run for all the tiers, but the most expensive is Recruiter Lite, which is a company side option which allows access to a completely new platform and other super helpful features that can help them to find the right employee. But this works out to $94.99 a month, mate. I mean, whilst these tiers might be amazing, that it can really benefit your LinkedIn experience, I'm sure, that's crazy money.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it from the opposite side of the coin, as a recruiter, how much would you pay for like a listening tool or a searching function to be able to find people in the industry? £94 is probably actually quite good value for money. But like you said, Dan, if you look at the bottom end of that scale, it's not Job Centre Plus,
No,
is it, mate?
It's not.
It's not helping those kind of people. It's helping people who have an aspiration to get probably a job in industry, referring to technology or social media or marketing or press, generally those kind of jobs, maybe even an NFT side as well. Now, it's not for your, hey, I'm looking for a job at Asda, or I'm looking for a job wherever, the local leisure centre. It's not that kind of function, and that's why it's £30 a month, because it does give you access to these high-end jobs. And if that statistic which you were saying earlier, Dan, about being more likely to get a job through LinkedIn is in fact correct, then potentially there is a great amount of value there. There really is. But like you're saying, there is a cost with that, and it's definitely not cheap.
It's really not. It's really not. And I think I would love to come on here and talk to you about my experiences with these premium features and give the good listeners of the Social Job Podcast some insight as to whether these features are truly worth it. But those expenses are the reason that I cannot give you that insight. They do offer free trials. I should caveat, it's not all about the money for LinkedIn and everything. That they do offer you free periods where you can check out each of the different relevant tiers and decide which one is best for you. And everything like that. So, I mean, yeah, if you are looking to get the most out of LinkedIn, then you can try these premium options. As I said, I think maybe the fact that I've never tried them speaks to the value of the platform in itself, that you don't have to pay to go on and get all of this amazing information that's just freely accessible to all users that you were talking about earlier, mate. And so maybe, it's a bit of a backhanded compliment in a way to LinkedIn that these things are so expensive. But you don't need to try them because there is so much value out there on the platform. And in a nutshell, mate, in the length of a podcast, I think that's why we love LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we have hopefully done it justice in terms of what a great platform it is, and hopefully answered a few questions in terms of what people wanted to know about LinkedIn. Yeah. So yeah, that's the game. And like you said, you have to be on the Patreon, our free Patreon account, if you want to have a say in what we discuss here on the Social Job Podcast. It's absolutely free to do. You just go and follow the page. You hit those little ellipses icons, you press follow, and then there you go. You are a follower of the Social Job. You will receive an email every time we post some new content on our Patreon. And don't forget, you get it first. You get it before anybody else gets it. So there is definitely a lot of benefits. There's going to be some more behind the scenes stuff coming up of the set build as well. So keep it locked to the Patreon account. And don't forget, follow Uniform and follow me and Dan everywhere on social media.
Guys, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you very much for listening to the Social Job Podcast. If you've liked anything which we've said today, or even better, disliked, if you want a bit of a conversation or you disagree with anything that Andreas or I have said, we'd love to have that conversation with you either down below in the comments if you're listening on YouTube, or get in touch at Uniform Brand or at our personal socials. We're always willing to listen to the listeners of the Social Job Podcast. Thank you very much for listening, one and all, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.